to $4.92 per ton. CBOT soybean oil and meal contracts are all mostly stronger this morning. China's commerce minister has said China will immediately start to buy U.S. ag products. However, traders are still skeptical and are looking for proof of intent. The canola market has seen a small rally over the past few weeks and could be vulnerable to profit taking. The loonie is stronger this morning, which is weighing on canola contracts. In the U.S. markets, the January soybean contract is up 7 cents to $9.17 per bushel. Export sales for U.S. soybeans last week were at 890,900 tons. Export sales for soybean meal were at 287,200 tons, and oil sales were at 21,100 tons. The price difference between U.S. and Brazilian soybeans is narrowing. Brazilian beans are roughly $25 a ton more expensive than U.S. soybeans now. U.S. corn futures are also stronger this morning. The March contract is up 2 cents to $3.85. Export sales for U.S. corn were at 1.178 million tons last week. Ethanol production increased last week, but the total for the first quarter of the marketing year is still lower than a year earlier. U.S. wheat futures are also up this morning. The March contract in Chicago gained 11 cents to $5.27. Kansas City was up 13 cents to $5.09 per bushel, and Minneapolis March wheat added 7 cents to $5.76. U.S. export sales last week for wheat were at 711,700 tons, which is higher than estimates. China sold 3,700 tons of wheat from its state's own reserve for $321.25 per ton. That's a look at the ICE futures, canola, and U.S. markets for Friday morning, December 7th in Winnipeg. For Markets Farm, I'm Ashley Robinson.
The end of 2018 is a perfect opportunity for you to save big. Visit Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John and take advantage of 0% financing or choose cash back on current year New Holland tractors and equipment. It's out with the old and in with the new. The New Holland year-end celebration ends December 31st. So hurry into Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John now. For commercial use only, customer participation subject to credit qualification and CNH Industrial Capital Canada Limited approval. Standard terms, conditions, and other restrictions apply. Down payment may be required.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Trev Talks with your host, Trevor Boland.
Good morning. Welcome to Trev Talks on this, what's going to be a gorgeous Friday heading into the weekend. Yes. We are joined by our very special guest, our MP, Bob Zimmer. As most of you have seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, Bob's been very, very vocal on Facebook and Twitter regarding fuel station prices as far as gas goes. We had some stories that were done by Tracy here at Moose FM and Energetic that, and Dan as well. We'll give Dan some credit. I mean, Dan's been a little bit vocal there as well, just wondering, what he'd see down south versus here. But I mean, really, Bob, I wanted you on the show because you were the most vocal, and you and I went a few rounds even on Facebook as far as the whats and the whys and stuff. Yep. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah, it really, you hear the questions about what can you do about this, and I think the answer that I've given back many, many times is what I'm sure people don't want is government to get into regulating fuel prices, because that's what happened with Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and that's what shut down the oil sector back in the day. Most of us remember those times, and it was dire. It was the late 70s, and it was a disaster for the industry. So that's not, and I've said too, we don't regulate the price of baseball bats, bags of chips, and anything else. So why should we regulate fuel? But there's some concerns about, what is the pricing scheme? Why is it so high? Why is it $1.45 in Fort St. John when a barrel of oil is only $12? Mm-hmm. So it makes sense when it's $100 a barrel. We understand that, but when it goes down, why is it staying at $1.45 in Fort St. John and everywhere else around us hasn't? But I'll give you a lot of credit, Trev. I know Gateway Esso is yours, and you've been the one that stepped up to the plate and really gotten competitive, because that's really what we need is a competitive market in Fort St. John, and you've stepped up, and that's what full credit to you and your business, the reason why the price has gone down 20 cents. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. But again, and it's part of you, and Tracy and these other people. I mean, Joyce Smith from Expert was another one that was very vocal on Facebook. And I think it comes down to the people saying, why is this happening? Why are we paying so much more? And until the fuel companies, because at the end of the day, the refineries and the oil companies set the prices. And you're right. You know what? I would love to pay $1.60 a liter for fuel if that meant that our Canadian oil was at $130 a barrel.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Because then everybody's working and there's projects going on, and you look next door to Alberta and the issues they're in now with curtailing a bit of their exploration, their drilling program. And it's funny. So I started to look into this a little bit, and I was looking back as to when it was $1.45.9, and the prices in Fort St. John at that point in time were about $1.21.9 at that point in time. And I think what people don't understand is every day that changes. So every day they issue new prices. Now lately, the last few days, it's gone up. Right, the cost of the actual gasoline from the refinery has increased, but the pumps have stayed at $127.9. Which is good, right? Which is not a bad thing at all. And some of the comments we see the most are, well, I was just in Alberta yesterday, and in Edmonton it's 96 cents, and I get it on our page a lot where I'll reply and I'll say, thank our provincial governments because 38.5 cents for every liter that you're putting in your vehicle goes to GST, which is the norm. BC's fuel tax, which is extremely high, and of course our ever-increasing carbon tax under the NDP government. So, I think for a part of it is people don't understand the difference between the provinces as well, right? Yeah. Ontario is a prime example, right? Rob Ford gets elected, scraps the carbon tax that they've got in play, and all of a sudden their gas is down to 90 cents a liter. Mm-hmm. We would love that too. Yeah. We'd love nothing more. But when you're paying almost 40 cents for every liter in taxes, how do you make that happen?
Well, and I have a breakdown. I don't know, some of you have seen Gas Buddy, and Dan McTeague has become a friend in this, is looking at the taxes. Motor fuel tax, 6.75 cents. Provincial motor fuel tax, 1.75 cents. Totaling about what you said, around 40 cents. 45.44 cents liter in tax alone. Yeah. Right?
That's insane.
And the fuel price, so it's called a rack price. So whether it comes from Edmonton or it comes from Prince George, the rack price, this is what the refineries sell it to business like Gateway Esso. It's for $61.30 from the Edmonton rack price and $64.90 from Prince George. Yeah. So totaling just basic cost is $1 a liter, like $1.02. So whatever's in the middle there, like we know that you have to make some money to keep the doors open in the business, and we just talked about this too. What eventually happens if businesses don't make money, they close, and we have, like the example is, we don't have a Zellers, we don't have any other options but Walmart here, and that we don't want to see happen either in Fort St. John. We like the options that we have. So businesses need to make money, but again, credit to you for bringing it down to the margins where it's much more affordable for people in Fort St. John.
It is. It's a big savings. We heard it loud and clear. I posted that Facebook video when we dropped down to that, about that $1.34.9 mark. People saying how much money they're going to save and how much better it's going to be, which is fantastic. Because at the end of the day, gas stations don't make a ton of money, and I think people figure that they do, right? By no stretch of the imagination are they just barely getting by, but they don't make a ton of money on the fuel. I would, in doing rough calculations this morning, a gas station right now probably is making about 17 cents net before expenses per liter. So, if you're going down there with your F-150, they're making $12 off your fuel purchase.
Right.
So it's not huge margins, but it needs to be realistic. It needs to be the fact that people aren't complaining about it every single day. And I think that's what we came to, where people were it was too much. Yeah. Right. It was enough. And I think that, people need to understand that, the amount of people reached out to you, I was impressed with, because they reached out to you, whether it was Facebook or Twitter or to you personally, saying, you know what, get us some help. Like, we don't know what else to do. We don't know where else to turn. And then you in turn, and it was funny because you had done a post. You had done a post at one of the stores that had their prices posted about the same time that we had done that first drop down to $1.39 or whatever it was. And it was good because kind of, and then Energetic had done a story at the same time, and all these three things kind of collided at once. And from that point in time, we've seen a drop in the pump, almost 20 cents. Where we're at 18 cents today, been the drop.
Yeah, and Dan McTeague recognized that as well, and the cause for that, and the credit to you for that. So, and that's not just in Canada. I think most people think Gas Buddy is just a one desk, Dan McTeague sitting at a desk by himself, but it's a massive organization. It's also in the U.S.
Huge.
So to get recognition for that in Fort St. John is important. So, no, I think, again, I think people are rightly concerned that there wasn't any movement because, you know, and I saw it on a regular basis because I go around the riding quite often. And what was really telling to me was when I went to Fort Nelson and it was actually 10 cents less a liter.
Yeah.
And transport costs are what they are. They're not insignificant, but
there's not that much of a difference.
Right. Yeah, and added up, it's around what Dan McTeague had told me. It's about 1 cent a liter for every 100 kilometers traveled.
Okay.
That's about roughly how he calculates 1 to 1.5 cents a liter for transport costs per 100K.
Yeah. So the average truck's going to bring 60,000 liters from Prince George to here.
Yeah.
What is that? What are we? We're probably 500 kilometers from Prince George.
Yeah, roughly.
I would guess that.
It's about 4 or something.
Yeah, so one to 1.5 cents a kilometer. So it makes sense that we're going to pay a little bit more here, and even a little bit more than Dawson, which I think is good because I think right now we're 3 to 4 cents more than Dawson Creek is, which is what it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense for transportation. When we were 10 to 12 cents more, that didn't make any sense.
Right.
And it's funny. I mean, there's a lot of retail stores. I mean, gas stations have become a very large corporate play, and I don't think people get that either. That a lot of times, you know, these gas stations get told, you know, we're paying 73 cents a liter, we're paying 40 cents in tax. Here's what you're going to post at the pumps.
Right.
But I think the awareness campaign that you created made people go back and say, no, we're not going to charge that.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned Gas Buddy, and I think that's what's great with Gas Buddy is I've got the app on my phone. You've got all your local stores on there, but like you said, you've got every store in Canada and the US on this app.
Yeah.
So now I find when I'm going somewhere, I'll check fuel prices.
Yeah.
I'll check what they are in Dawson, what they are in Grand Prairie, and you can literally plan your entire trip and be able to know that there's going to be no surprises.
Right.
Right. Because I always find it funny that, you know, we'll have one gas station at $1.27.9, and there was another one at $1.34.9.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to be that guy that fills up at $1.34.9,
Right.
drives 3 blocks away and goes, what?
Yeah, what was I doing? Yeah.
Why did I do that?
Yeah. I think what I'll say too, in full disclosure, is you know, the concern just about, you brought up the carbon tax. That's one thing that we're deeply concerned about, the effects on the whole resource sector. So not just filling up your cars out here, but what it does to oil and gas development, the threat that I think was a direct impact, what it affected Petronas and the development on the West Coast, and why they finally said, I think it was the final straw. They don't say that, but I believe it was. So it's something we need to keep as government pressure on that gas tax too, to not keep going to that, just saying if we want more money, that's where we're going to go get it. And I know we're committed to getting rid of the carbon tax if we're government the next time around in 2019.
Let's hope so.
So also the double taxation of the GST on all these other taxes as well is just something that sticks in my craw. To tax a tax is just, in principle, is wrong.
Yeah,
so we need to do our bit too in Ottawa. Again, full disclosure, it's not just the retailers that have to bear a bit of that tightening the belt a little bit. It's government too.
I agree. And you know what? I mean, our carbon tax in BC is set to increase again. Mm-hmm. I believe next year under the NDP they've got
it actually goes from $35 to $40 a ton, and that sounds like this broad thing. Like, well, what does that mean? It's about a cent for every 5. Like 35 to 40 is about a cent a liter.
Yeah. Which adds up.
It does.
Right?
It does.
When you're going from when you're adding $5 a ton on there.
Well, especially when you see most environmental groups that are saying for the carbon tax to have a real effect on reducing emissions, it has to get around the $200 mark. So you're looking at dramatic increases in fuel prices.
Can you imagine $200 a ton?
Yeah, and not just to you, not to just our guys filling up our cars and filling up our trucks, but to the industry.
Yeah.
It's
well,
massive.
and the gas you're heating your home with, right? P&G charges
Absolutely.
a carbon tax. I think even BC Hydro has a carbon tax now on their on their bills.
I haven't seen that. I should have a look at that.
Look. I know they came out with
P&G
that.
does, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean BC Hydro came out with that assistance program where that's a new tax that's on the BC Hydro bills where they charge you 25 cents per bill or something that goes into a collected pot. But I'm pretty sure there's carbon tax on even on your hydro bill now. So everywhere we turn around, we're getting this carbon tax, and you know, my hope is that people are as vocal about carbon tax and everything else as they have been on fuel prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because it is one thing, it's one thing to go after the retailers and get that done and get that down because you're going to save money. It's going to be easier to live. But what about everything else?
Right.
Right? And if we see this increase another $5 a ton this year, and it's supposed to increase another $10 a ton next year, where does it stop?
Yeah.
We're going to be paying more in carbon tax than we are the actual product.
Absolutely.
But we've got a provincial government that I believe, and it's of course my personal opinion, that carbon tax has become a general revenue base.
Absolutely, it is.
And nothing more.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we're seeing too, even with the federal government too. It was supposed to be somewhat neutral, but the way they make this neutral is they bring all your money in, and then they pick winners and losers about who gets the money. And to me, I'd rather leave money in the taxpayer's back pocket to spend it in the way they want to spend it, because the effect of it's not really reducing any kind of pollution anyway. It's just not having that effect. So I think that's what we need to do, is really push on that. And I would just say, this is a small example of a little bit of public pressure and having a good effect.
Agreed.
But we need to contact the provincial government and say, look, we really don't like the carbon tax in BC. We need to say that federally to really have that change, because change can happen. We've seen government back down on different things based on pressure that we've applied. So
Agreed.
I think people need to understand, hey, you can do this. We just need to provide them with the right information, which ministers to contact. We can do that. But I think it's a good thing when people start saying, hey, we don't want to go there.
Stand up, make change. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after the commercial with Bob and talk a little bit more about what's going on.
For the last few years, we've all been treated by getting to watch one of the greatest hockey players ever play the game. Now it's time to let players in our area train like Connor. Taylor Minor Hockey invites you to a fundraising pub night at the Canadian Brew House. $20 gets you in the door and access to the Appy Bar, and they will also give you a $6 drink voucher for a night filled with laughter, a 50-50 draw, a raffle table, and prizes at the Canadian Brew House. So come join us Saturday, December 8th at the Canadian Brew House and help us raise money for the Power Edge Pro Camp. For tickets, email tournaments@taylorminorhockey.com.
Most of us kids don't like to open presents that we know have clothes in them, but that's because most kids don't get clothes from Smarty Pants. Whether you're shopping for a boy, girl, infant, or teen, Smarty Pants has great new items arriving from Under Armour, Hatley, MID, and Mex, with sizes available for kids of all ages. This Christmas morning, give your kids a gift they are excited to open by checking out our top brands. I know that's what I will want this year. Get your holiday shopping done at Smarty Pants on 103rd Ave, and follow us on Facebook to keep updated on ours and new arrivals.
Everyone struggles with computers. New shortcuts, plug-and-play devices that don't play when you plug them, and more. Sit back and learn some stupid computer tricks with Vern from Computer Emporium across from the Northern Grand Hotel on 100th Avenue in Fort St. John.
Sometimes we have programs that start up automatically whenever Windows starts. These are things like the little icons in the lower right corner near the clock, and some programs you don't even see actually. They each take a little time to load at startup, and after loading they are each dragging down your computer resources and a little bit of speed. Some of these programs are necessary to have start up automatically, like your antivirus program, but many of them are useless to the average computer user and can easily be removed from the startup list. Click on the Start button, then just type in msconfig and press enter. I remember it as Microsoft Configuration. This will launch the System Configuration Utility program of Windows. Click on the tabs labeled Startup and Services. This will show you all the programs and services starting up each time you turn on your computer. Just remove the check mark from the item you don't want to start. Be selective and be sure to leave any antivirus programs in the list. So that's the Start button, and then type in msconfig to remove programs from loading every time Windows starts.
Stupid computer tricks with Vern from Computer Emporium, helping you use computers more efficiently. Is heard Monday to Saturday on Moose FM.
Hi, Vern here from Computer Emporium. Open an email or visit a site that seems to have slowed your computer down. Possibly you've got a nasty virus, and we've got a nice technician that can clean your system up and get you back surfing again. See the professionals at Computer Emporium, helping you use computers more efficiently.
During the holidays, much of our time is spent in the kitchen. We cook, we clean, we chat, and most importantly, we grab that late night snack. With all that goes in your kitchen over the holidays, it's important that you have the space, the look, and the design to make your guests feel right at home. At iDesign Kitchens, we'll turn your dream kitchen into reality. Find us in the Century 21 building, on Facebook, and at iDesignKitchens.ca. Proud to be a sponsor of this year's Light a Moose campaign. I design kitchens. It's time for a kitchen that really cooks.
Quiznos has brought back their Greek gyro. Enjoy seasoned beef and lamb, crumbled feta, banana peppers, crisp lettuce, and red onions topped with tzatziki sauce on a flatbread, sub, Sammy, or in a salad. The Greek gyro is back. Try one today at Quiznos, beside Walmart.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. This is Trev Talks with Trevor Bolin.
We are back. Thanks for joining us. If you are just catching up with us now, we've been talking with our MP Bob Zimmer about fuel prices and the changes in the last month since everybody got together and started to voice some concerns. And then we were talking a little bit about politics as well, and just the carbon tax and of course what's happening in BC compared to Ontario scrapping theirs. You know, Jason Kenney, we were talking a little bit earlier. He's trying to get Rachel Notley to call a early election as early as March and voting for April, and part of their mandate as well is scrapping the carbon tax in Alberta, and as we look forward to a $200 a ton carbon tax from the 30 that we're at, and we see these other provinces scrapping them and benefiting. The people are benefiting, I think, is the biggest thing, right? So what's happening over east? I mean, I see that the NEB is back to doing their hearings right now, or this week for Trans Mountain, of course. I'm sure that's probably still a hot topic in government in Ottawa. Is there anything else that's going on? I mean, you guys are leading the polls, which I've seen 46% or something the other day.
It depends on the poll.
Depends on the poll, but I mean, they've been very positive.
It's been good. I think a lot of people are concerned just about the livelihood of Canada and where we're going with our projects. When you're cooling the climate of development in Canada at such a dramatic rate, we see GM leaving. We see just look in Alberta and oil companies having to limit production. I mean, it's crazy. Meanwhile, we're still importing oil from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and we're still doing it, still coming in.
What did I see yesterday?
It's ridiculous.
The United States is now a net exporter of oil.
Yeah.
For the first time in 75 years.
Yeah.
So for the first time in 75 years, the U.S. is actually beating us at what we do best.
Yeah.
Right, which makes no sense to me at all.
And people wonder why we question sometimes their competitive tactics, that they're actually trying to compete for our market share in the oil and gas sector. And
they've done it.
Absolutely are.
They've taken it away from us.
They've done it, yeah.
Right?
And meanwhile, we have huge amounts, and this is something that I went to UK over, is foreign influence in our elections.
I've seen that, and that's still going on.
It's still, it was really good. We had we represented about 450 million citizens, essentially, 9 countries.
Wow.
Taking Facebook to task. And again, it's not that we want platforms like that to leave. It's part of I call it the new public square, where we converse with each other. But we need to make sure that bullies aren't controlling that public square, and places like U.S. and Russia and China aren't being bullies and controlling what we say.
Which they have been.
Absolutely.
They have been. And I think we start to see a lot more on Facebook. And I don't think people think, you know what I think? When they see it on their wall and it's shared from a friend, there's no investigation behind it. It's the absolute truth. Right. Right? And it's like, we'll see all the time. We'll say, really, do you believe everything you read on Facebook? Right? Because, and I think, the last federal election, when Stephen Harper was not renamed the prime minister, I think a lot of that election was outside influence.
Yeah, absolutely,
I think a huge amount was outside influence, and you look at the Conservatives, you guys not getting a majority, and then you look at the United States now 3 years later becoming the largest. Economic-wise, producer of oil.
Right.
And it's like, okay, wait a minute. How did that go so wrong?
Not a lot of protests down there,
no.
Ironically, too.
No,
it's
no
kind of
protests
strange.
down there.
Yeah.
Zero. Yet they sure do protest up here.
Yeah, and they've stopped pipelines, and we've had a government that's been kind of complicit in that, too. The Kinder Morgan, just to talk about Trans Mountain a bit, to me it was interesting to see that project just at the finish line, and it went to court. A judge ruled that there needed to be more consultation. Instead of appealing that or even maybe addressing that, maybe just doing a little bit, the Trudeau government says we're going to reconsult all 117 bands along that pipeline. And even it's been cabinet conversation, is that even possibly giving the pipeline to these Indigenous groups along the pipeline.
After we paid $4.5 billion for it.
Well, this is for the existing, so this would be even more money for the new one. So it all points to the death by regulation, and you start to get, and I was hopeful that they would at least want to see this project go forward based on national interest. But when you see this death by regulation, you really get suspicious. And you see the people in his cabinet, like McKenna, for instance, who wants to stop all fossil fuel developments, period. You really wonder and get suspicious this is their angle, is really killing projects through regulation. And so do I have confidence that they're going to ensure that a pipeline's built to the coast? I do not, absolutely. No. So,
but the Trans Mountain, so they're doing new NEB reviews right now down south. I seen that yesterday, the day before. So they've restarted the reviews and the conversations,
which is crazy because it's already been through
3
rigorous
years?
process already of consultation, and to me it's just ridiculous.
And they're supposed to be done the end of February is when I've heard they're supposed to be done. So we've got them wrapping up the end of February, and then the election. When do we get? I mean, of course, election mode starts soon, right? We call it silly season here, but when do we get into the federal election time?
So right now we've heard rumors even April 11th is a number that's or a date that's been talked about, but it depends on where you're at. I don't, some days I think early would make sense for Mr. Trudeau. He doesn't like being in question period because he's getting hammered there on a regular basis. They are as a government. So it makes sense. They don't want to be there. They'd rather be out on the campaign trail possibly. The official election's supposed to happen in October of 2019. So in between those dates, it's
kind
possible.
of between April and October.
Yeah, but I'm saying, my gut, I guess now, and they haven't called one yet, is that it'll be in October.
Okay.
So it'll start ramping up. You'll start seeing projects getting announced.
From the Trudeau government.
Yep.
As he tries to buy votes.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all, to be very clear, it's all taxpayers' money that's paying for this. Yeah. So people don't need to feel like they're getting a gift. They're actually just getting some of their money back.
Yeah. It is not a gift whatsoever.
No.
So October at the latest is when we have to look. And the only reason I asked that is because I see, was it the New Brunswick or the Newfoundland, the new premier has gone back asking for Energy East. You were a big supporter of Energy East.
Absolutely.
The Harper government was a big supporter of Energy East, and it's nice seeing that the East is back, bringing this back to the table again. And my hope is
I think it's a patriotism thing.
Even
as a Canadian,
it's huge.
I would much rather have, and you look at what they do in Saudi Arabia and Venezuela with their citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, women were just allowed to drive a few years ago. I mean, think about that. And here we're saying we want to stop Canadian oil production, and we're still going to buy oil from countries like that. Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
But even beyond that, why would we not want to support our own products, our own country?
Absolutely.
Nothing makes me happier as somebody living in northern British Columbia than seeing people in Alberta work, than seeing people in Saskatchewan, seeing the province boom, right? Absolutely. We've seen Saskatchewan under the thumb of the NDP for decades and getting into a conservative government, and Saskatchewan has done phenomenal for the last 5-6 years. And why would you not want to see that across Canada? Yeah. And I think that's what we're lacking, and I think that's beyond what the United States has done as far as market share for oil and gas. I think that's one thing they have over us is their patriotism. They are extremely proud when the country does well together, and I think we as Canadians, I mean, we're very easygoing, right? Mm-hmm. Americans always make fun of us, the sorry, but I think we need to stand up. Mm-hmm. We need to take control of our government. If it takes a revolution to do that, then let that revolution be voting day, where you just decide that you've had enough.
Yeah.
Coast to coast, north
absolutely.
to south. It needs to be all of us.
Just like we saw with this little, whatever you want to call it, campaign to have fuel prices lowered a bit in Fort St. John. We need to get a bit angry about the fact that we're not developing our resources, not using them across Canada. It should make us a little bit mad, regardless of what political stripe we are. I mean, just to think about it too. Just don't think along political lines necessarily, but think about who's going to try and bridge that gap and try and bring us all together with a national project, so we're all working. Because when the energy sector is doing well in Alberta, the whole country's doing better. Because the money goes everywhere.
Money is spread throughout.
Absolutely.
And same as BC, northern BC. You look at LNG, the Canada LNG project. That's going to benefit everybody in Canada.
Absolutely.
Right? So why wouldn't we want these mega projects? We do development, we do exploration, we do drilling, we do it better than anybody. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't we want the entire country to benefit? But that's the question I think we need to ask come October.
Yeah, that needs to be the ballot question. Instead of it being a party thing, or it's do I like Bob Zimmer or not, or whatever. It needs to be more of a question of that.
What do
who
you
do we,
stand
who do we
for?
want? Yeah, who do we want to see benefit? Do we want to see our own country and look at it that way? To me, it's that simple. That should be the ballot question.
Agreed. And I think that we need to, like you said, be more vocal. I think we need to stand up, and these campaigns, I mean, literally people could actually stop about 4 of you on the street and say, hey, thank you for doing something, right? Because you literally made change right here in a community, Fort St. John. We need to take that to a larger level. We need to take it to a bigger scale. So that is all the time we have for the show today. So I appreciate you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Trev.
I appreciate you spearheading the projects that you do and ensuring that your voice is heard loud and clear. And to the folks at Energetic City and Tracy as well for her story. And that's it for us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Trev Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peace.